Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Very good afternoon to everyone. So, as we people are aware that the course which we people are taking is professional communication in and at workplace. So, this is what professional skills needed at the workplace, and the course title is MCS 214, and that is professional skills and ethics. So, in my last lecture, what I discussed, I talked about Unit 1, that was under the segment of Block 1, where we people discussed few points. That is, what are the process of communication, what is communication, what are the barriers of communication, what are verbal communication, what are non-verbal communication. So all these points were clarified. Now today, I will be working on this. I will be talking on this one only. That is the block one, where we will be discussing Unit 2, Unit 3, Unit 4, and Unit 5. In Unit 2, we will be talking about what are the telephone techniques. Then we will be talking about the job application and the interviews. Apart from that, we will be talking about the group discussions as well as managing the organizational structure. Before I speak about managing the organizational structure, this is what we people have seen, that there in any organization, there is a kind of a structure. They follow a kind of a structured pattern. So that means whenever we communicate in a very formal kind of a manner. That means there is a person who is a chairperson, and under him there are so many people who are talking. So how we make a kind of a balance. So that is something which is being required, and that is how we manage. We make a kind of we need certain kind of a skills which is required in an organizational structure. So the next thing which we people will be talking about is the telephonic techniques. So before I start it, I will be just sharing my this screen with you people. Just give me a second. So please do let me know if you can see my PPT. The PPT is visible. Apart from that, the last half an hour, as I had discussed, I will be continuing my lecture for the 90 minutes, and last 30 minutes will be for the question and answers. So students who are having the question and answers can discuss their questions. They can write their questions in the chat box, and what we will be doing, we will be discussing it later. So is my screen visible?
Yes, that's visible.
Okay. So as we people are talking about Unit 2, so in Unit 2, we will be talking about what telephone technique is. So in this segment, the objectives of this segment will be that here I will be discussing on few points. That means the last time when we were talking about that what communication is. So communication is something which is based on a kind of a technique, and that is LSRW. L is something where we used to listen. S is something which is dealt with the speaking skills. W is something which deals with the writing skills as well as R is something which deals with the reading. So here where we people are talking about that what are telephonic techniques. So whenever we are talking about the communication, so communication is something which take place as we people are talking about the technology with the commencement of the modern term. This is what we people have seen, where we people are talking about the modernization and the digitalization. So there are so many kind of the business deals. There are so many kind of the communication which happens through the telephone. Sometimes there are certain kind of the interviews also which take place with this kind of the mode. Apart from that, one more thing which we people have seen is that is if we are sometimes what we do, we prefer this kind of that means this kind of a telephonic communication, because here there are so many channels of communication. Channels of communication means that either in the writing form or in a kind of a meeting form. So what we do, we have a kind of a conversation, and that is through the telephone. There are certain kind of the automated answering machine, there are texting methods, there are emails. So what we do, we generally make these kind of, we utilize all these kind of um, techniques for all our conversation and all our communication. So whenever we are talking about what is a telephonic communication, so please, there is a very single kind of a very meager kind of a line which talks about that sometimes what we do, there is a kind of a formal kind of a communication and informal kind of a communication. Because whenever we are making a kind of a communication, it can be with our friends. So if we are making a kind of a communication with our friends, so that is something which can be considered as an informal kind of a communication. But whenever we are making communication through this kind of a medium, which can be considered as a telephone, so telephonic communication is something which can be considered, and especially when we people are talking in terms of the formal. So it should be well planned, it should be well organized, and then only we can have a kind of a conversation. So through this kind of a there is another kind that means ki whenever we are talking through telephonically, so it will always give you a kind of personal touch. That is something which is being required. That means the more clear you are, the more stated you are, the more precise you are, then only the person, that means whosoever is communicating, one on one hand we have the person who is speaking, and the other hand we have the other person who is listening. So we should always have a kind of a positive impact whenever there is a telephonic communication is happening, whenever we are talking through telephone. Apart from that, in any kind of a business organization, telephone is something which plays a very important role. Now we come to what are the telephonic etiquette. So etiquette, the term etiquette, it means that how to behave. Okay, so how to behave systematically when we do not know any person, and when we try to contact that person for the first time. It is our mannerism uh, through which we behave, and that is something which is being considered as an etiquette. That means how gentle our voice is, whether we have taken a kind of permission. Because whenever we are using this thing, that means whenever we are making a kind of an effective telephonic conversation, it comes only with a kind of a practice, because we just say hello, and after that hello we have to continue, because for that we need to acquire certain kind of skills that makes a successful telephone calls in each and every kind of a situation. Because whenever we are using a kind of a language which is being used on a telephone, it should be specialized, it should be easily conveyed, as well as the most common expression should be used in various situations. So that is what we have. That is something which is being required. And why it is being used? It is being used because uh, telephone communication includes the way you represent your business and yourself. Because in this, we have to make a kind of a deal. So, how do we greet the receiver? What is the tone of our voice? What are the words which we people are using? And how are our listening skills? Whether we are listening to the queries in a systematic order or just randomly we are listening. All things are being recorded in a telephone. So actually, whenever we are saying telephone, so telephonic etiquette, it shows that how professional we are. And before, that means once we have mastered the expression used while making or receiving a kind of a phone call. So how we will be mastering it? We will be mastering it through a proper planning your phone calls in advance and preparing a notes for them so that you can control your conversation, and you should not fumble in your whenever we are making a kind of a conversation. So that is that. And if we are making, and if we are very clear with our thoughts, it means that even our customers also believe that their work is good and it is in safe hand. So that is why in a professional communication we use these kind of telephonic techniques. So in my next slide, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this kind of, that means what is the difference between, because whenever we are having a kind of a meeting, we have the face to face as well as we have a kind of a telephonic conversation. So here, whenever we make a call, this is something which we should be aware. That means whenever we are aware, we should be aware of the importance of using a very polite. Please note down this point that we should be very, very polite. We should be very, very friendly while speaking to someone on telephone. So that is something which is being required. Apart from that, the expression which we use. So here the tone of the voice is something which plays a very important role, and it is something which creates a kind of an impression over the telephone. So if we are practicing all these things, or what we can do, we can role play these kind of activities, and that is something which can come up with a proper form. Apart from that, there are certain kind of the situation, it can be randomly. So if you will just go through the textbook, so they had given you so many kind of the exercise, and they will be giving you a kind of a situation. For example, if I quote your textbook, so in that there is a situation, and that situation is something which is being mentioned that you have to hear a woman, you ordering a food from a restaurant through the telephone. So what should be your, how you are going to make a deal on that? Okay, so that is something how you will be using your conversation. First of all, what is the name of the hotel? What do you want to order? Whether the restaurant people they offer free meals, free drinks, or something, or what are the order? What order she is placing? What order you want to place? So that all things, whether she requires some more any kind of a dessert or any kind of a snack, or whether any kind of a continental dish. So that is all is something which is being required. So these are some kind of the examples which are being given in your textbook, which you have to follow it up apart from, and that is where you have to check your progress also. So this is how you will be making it. Apart from that, there is a kind of a difference. And what is the difference? The difference between the face-to-face conversation as well as the telephonic conversation. So this is something which is very, very important. So whenever we are talking about the face-to-face conversation, so what happens whenever we are making a face-to-face conversation? So in face-to-face conversation, um, we shake hands, but on telephone, we make a kind of a contact. In face-to-face conversation, we smile. And in telephonic conversation, what we do, we used to speak slowly. In face-to-face conversation, we know that what are the other person's reaction. But in telephonic conversation, we do not know whom we people are talking to because we haven't seen the face of that partner. Then we are having a kind of a conversation. Just like a restaurant thing. That means if we have to order a kind of a meal from a restaurant, we should be aware that what are the products. So that means if we are working on a hotel industry and if we have to take the orders, so what all things that means ki here if we are running a kind of a business, so that means ki, the customer, we have to go for the demand of the customer, what the customer wants from us. So that is something which is being required. So here we do not know who is our customer, but what we do, we just used to hear the voice of our customer. On the other hand, in face-to-face conversation, we can see the reactions, but in telephonic conversation, what we do, we can just use our hands, we can just show certain kind of the reactions. Apart from that, whenever we are having a kind of a face-to-face conversation, we speak carefully, isn't it? And in telephonic conversation, sometimes what happens, we use a casual manner because we try to be friendly with that person, and then only the communication goes on. Apart from that, whenever we are having a face-to-face conversation, what happens, we speak little loudly so that in face-to-face conversation, we maybe there can be a kind of a situation where we people are talking with one person or many person. So whether we are audible, whether we are clear, so we can just ask that person, we can get the answer. But apart from that, we can be brief also, but in telephonic conversation, we have to be very, very polite. We have to say that, may I take a message? And we use a kind of a language, and that is how we address. That is like by saying a hello. So that is so it. That is why we always say is that for any kind of a telephonic conversation, we need a kind of a practice, and for that we need a certain kind of this skill. Sometimes some customers are very, very rude, or you are going to deal with those kind of the customers. So it is based on the situation. Your politeness, your activeness is something. Your friendly expressions are something through which you can make the deal, and that is how we can uh, coordinate. So that is how in a very professional manner we use these kind of telephonic communication skills. So these are the in my next slide, I'm showing you what are the importance of telephonic communication skills. So this is what they are talking about. If you just see the bullets, it is already being mentioned that first thing they are talking about is the professionalism. Second is the impression. Third is the loyalty and the trust. And fourth one is something which can be considered as the customer satisfaction. So whenever we are communicating with the telephone in a telephonic manner, so that means it always reflects our professionalism because it makes our customers believe that wherever their work is. So it is there with a safer hands. Okay, and sometimes if we make a deal properly and systematically, then again we are going to approach the same site, isn't it? So that means it increases your business. On the other hand, impression. If we give a kind of a positive impression, so the receiver, on the other hand, will feel respected and he will continue in a proper and systematic manner. Apart from that, there is loyalty and trust. So, telephonic etiquettes bring the trust of your potential customers. So, they will be loyal for you and they will take certain kind of the services again and again. So, that is why telephonic communication is something which is very, very important. Apart from that, whenever we are making, for example, nowadays it is very common in any country or wherever we are. That is what we people have seen. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. So that is what we people have seen. That whenever the customer, that means the customer should be satisfied, and it is very common process. If we have to order a pizza, if we have to order a dinner, so all these things are something which we can go through only one call. So all these one call is something which is making a conversation and making a kind of a business deal in a systematic manner. So that is why, and whenever we are talking about what are the etiquette elements of a telephonic conversation. So that is, first of all, that doesn't mean that someone is keeping on calling you, calling you, calling you, and we are not receiving. How these kind of business will happen? It doesn't mean that this kind of a sense is something which can be considered as unprofessionalism. So that is where we are saying these are the quite elements of the telephonic etiquettes whenever we are making a kind of a conversation through the telephone. Number one, answering the calls in first or two or three rings. It gives the feeling of being valued. You should always answer. If we are not answering, so there are certain kind of the machines which are known as the answering machines. So what we can do, we can leave a message, okay, in those kind of the answering machines, so that we cannot make the other people wait for a very long period of time. Apart from that, it gives you a kind of an identification, and there is no confusion in your business. Thoughts are clear. So that is why we do not find any kind of a problem, and that is how in professional dealing it goes in a with a very good pace. Apart from that, the proper and a positive tone of voice. Your voice modulation should be very, very proper, very systematic. It should be it should be gentle, okay, so that you create a good rapport among everyone. Apart from that, whenever we are using, in my last lecture, I had already mentioned that what is a jargon. So we should always use a proper language, and that appropriate language should be customer friendly language, or the person with whom we are making a call, it should be proper and systematic. We should always avoid a jargon. So I will just explain what a jargon is. We had already discussed it. Jargon is a kind of a technical language or a professional language which is being used by certain kind of the professional, any kind of a professional field, like where we people are talking about the engineers, we people are talking about the doctors, where we people are talking about the lawyers. So what happens if the doctor is making a kind of a communication in his pure medical terms, he's using his medical term, the patient will never be able to understand that what he is trying to say. So what does a doctor does? Doctor makes his language simple, and then he communicates, he makes his patient understand that this is the problem. Same is there with the lawyer also. If we are into a kind of a legal matters, so legal language is something which is very, very tough. So whenever we are making a kind of a deal or we are making a kind of a conversation with a lawyer, so if he will be using all these kind of the jargons, that means all his legal terms. So it will be very difficult for his customer to understand that what the lawyer is trying to say. So what he has to do, he has to avoid these kind of the technical language. Apart from that, whenever because whenever we are making a kind of a telephonic conversation, we cannot see the face of the person. We can just hear the voice. So the voice quality should be good. We should be very friendly and we should be using a kind of a cheerful body language so that we get a kind of a so that it get resonated. Am I right? Are you able to listen to me? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I will taking a kind of a feedback like this so that I may we get to know that the other person are also listening. Okay, so now the next element. So that means we should not use any kind of an interruption. That means the barriers to the communication. So it should not come up with any kind of a phone call. So there should be no distraction, no interruption. So these should be avoided. Then we should be very aware of one fact, and that is what we people can say that whenever we are making a kind of a call, so we should be taking notes, we should be listening actively. Okay, so that is something that will be an additional advantage that will be very beneficial for the customer to understand. That will be very positive kind of a feedback from in understanding the customer. Apart from that, whenever we are dealing with any kind of a customer, the customer always prefers that is a polite and a sympathetic, honest message. We cannot blab on anything. We cannot use any kind of a language, offensive language, which is being recorded. Maximum times, whenever we are making a kind of a telephonic conversation, you are aware that sometimes calls are being recorded whenever the business calls are there, isn't it? So that is also which is being required. On the other hand, wherever we are placing a call or what we are doing, if we are using it in a form of a hold. So first of all, what we are supposed to do, we are supposed to uh, take a permission. First of all, we will take a permission and then only we can make we have to take a permission and then we can continue with a call. Apart from, we cannot make the customer wait for a very long time. Even the banking service, all are through phone call only. And before winding up our call, we should be aware of this kind of a fact, and that fact should be that all the queries should be resolved. That means we should be avoiding any kind of disturbance, and whatever that means, if we have started a kind of a conversation, should come to an end. And the other part is we should always stay calm and composed even though we are in any kind of a pressurized state. So these are certain kind of the examples which I have taken from your textbook, that is Professional Skills and Ethics. You can just go through it. It is already there. So there what we have done, we have given it in a form of an example. The example is something like there are a number of phrases and idioms that are commonly used when we are telephoning. And these are, we can just have a kind of a look on the dialogues where the operator is saying, hello, Gulchand and brothers, can I help you? And then Amit is saying that this is Amit Kumar. Can you get me an extension of 4200, please? Operator, certainly. So see, the words, the phrases which are being required are something which are they are being used in a bold form. Certainly, hold on a minute. I will put you through. So see, he's taking a kind of a permission. Hold for a minute. And then the call is being extended. And there is Kamla, Hari Singh office, Kamla Jagannath speaking. And then further we take the conversation. This is Amit Kumar calling, is Hari in? So these are different kind of the phrases which we use or what we can say. And then I am afraid he is out for a moment. Can I please take a message? And then Amit is saying, yes, could you please ask him to call me in? The telephone number is being given. I need to talk him about the Dig Jam contract. It's urgent. Okay, so this is how the business deals are being made. And then the other side person, what he's saying, Kamla, could you please repeat the number, please? And then yes. And that means what the other person is doing. Other person is writing that number. Yes, that's 914-513631. So this is Amit Kumar. So this is how we make a proper kind of a telephonic conversation. In your unit, there was one more thing which was being mentioned, and that was how do we deal with a conference call. So first of all, whenever we are talking about a conference call, so what is a conference call? So conference call is a telephone call by which a caller can speak to several people at same time. So it is not one-to-one kind of a conversation, but here in a conference call, what we are doing, this is something where we are talking to several people. So it is something where we take a meeting, where we are holding a kind of a meeting. So that is where we require a conference call. So these are the best practices which are being required. Then we are developing a kind of a conference call. So in a conference call, a caller is someone who is speaking to several people. On the other hand, these calls have become more and more relevant in present day, especially in the workplace, where lots of work is conducted as long distance. So, as the people are knowing, with the globalization, we make business with so many people. So, this is how we deal. So in while making a kind of any kind of a meeting or whenever we are making a kind of a business deal, so we use this kind of a process. And a conference call is something which is like a holding a meeting on a telephone, and the ground rules are the same. That is for the meeting. So that is why whenever we are making a kind of a conference call, that is what we have seen, that it is just like a meeting. And whenever we are holding a meeting now, in a meeting, what happens? We need a kind of an agenda. And that agenda is something that these are the points on which we people will be talking. So first of all, the best practice is, first of all, we have to prepare for in advance for a conference call. Second is something where we set a kind of an agenda, and that is something which is there for a discussion. Third is something we greet and introduce all the kind of participants, where we introduce all the kind of the participants. And sometimes what we are supposed to do, we are supposed to avoid the speaker phones, cell phones, computers, internet-based dial-up for the conference. So that is something which is being required, and we should always stay on the schedule. So that these are something which are being listed over there. We are whenever we are making a kind of a conference call. So we have to manage the discussion since we have an agenda. So that agenda should be pursued. And what we are supposed to do, we have to manage our discussions as well as we have to encourage the active participants, active participations of all the people. So we should always be there. Apart from that, the next thing which is being mentioned in your unit 2 in telephonic technique, that is answering machine. So what is an answering machine? So sometimes we, as we are saying that whenever we are making a kind of a conversation through the telephone, so sometimes we have to leave a message for someone on an answering machine. And because that person is not available during that time. It can be any kind of a situation. We are calling someone, the other person is not receiving our call, and he is saying that the person will be, as soon as the person will be available, please enter your message. So that is through the voicemail, how we people are going to enter, how we are going to record our own message. So that is something when we leave a message for someone in an answering machine, we need to record our own message. So this is how our message will be different from the message we have covered in the previous sections. This is what we have seen, because there what we are doing, that is one-to-one call. But whenever we have to leave a message, the message should be something which is very accurate. It should be clear. It should be concise, because sometimes there is a time limit, and in that time limit we have to leave that message. Apart from that, another thing, the etiquette which is being required is we should include all the relevant information. That means who is speaking, what is the name, what are the contact details, and what was the purpose of call. So that is something which is very, very required field, and that is why we use all these things. Apart from that, whenever we are giving our answers through the answering machine or voicemail, so we should always respond to our voicemails. So that is something which is being required. Now we are just coming to the conclusion. So the conclusion is, that means whenever we are using the telephonic skills, they are very essential for an effective communication and building a kind of a strong um, telephonic relationship. So that is why it is very, very important. Apart from that, whenever we are speaking, that means we should be the key, then that is the key to speak clearly, precisely, and effectively. So whatever we are saying, it should be clear, it should be effective, and it should be very, very precise. So that is why we use a kind of a friendly and a professional tone. And when that means, as I told you earlier, that whenever we are making a kind of a telephonic conversation, we should, there is always a kind of a scope of continuous improvement and learning. Before speaking, we should be very, very aware of what we speak, how we speak, and how we conclude. So all these things are very, very must required things. So these are the important things whenever we are making a kind of a telephonic conversation. So now this one is complete. So now I'm going to share another PPT, and that will be something which will be based on the job application and interviews. Just give me a minute. So the next PPT is something that is based on your unit 2, and that is something which can be considered unit 3, that is job application and interview. So this is something which is very, very important. That means whenever we are holding a kind of an interviews. So in this columns, in this topic, we are going to cover few things. That is, how do we apply for a job? That is how, in a very formal kind of a manner. So all these kind of the communication is something which can be considered as a formal kind of a communication. So here we are going to talk about that, first of all, how we are going to write an application for a job. Secondly, we are going to talk about how to write before applying for a job. We used to make a resume of what is a curriculum writing. So that is how we are going to produce our CV. And then Once we prepare our CV, how we will prepare for the job interview, and then we will be talking about that when that how what is the difference between that, how we are going to justify our resume or our CV in an interview. So that means whatever documents we are producing in an interview, in a CV, it should be all the relevant kind of an information. So that is something which is being required. So what is the structure? So all these things we are going to talk about. So these all the things I had already discussed, that we are going to talk about the job application letter, we are going to talk about the curriculum vitae and the job interview. So here, first of all, where we people are talking about what is a job application letter. So why, see, I don't know how you will feel, but this is whenever we apply for a job, whether and especially in a private sector. So what does it mean? It means that we have to sell ourselves. Sell ourselves, that doesn't mean in a very derogatory manner, but that is something why a company should hire you. We have so many reasons, no? Because since you people will be applying for the job after pursuing your career, so why do we require? So that means why sometimes the first question which in an interview, the first question which a person or a company manager, the person who is, one is the employer and another one is the employee. So the employer will definitely ask you a question, why should we hire you? What is there in you? That is the first situation. That is the first condition. What are good things in you that we should hire you? So that is there. Whenever we are writing a kind of a job application letter, so that is something where, first of all, it should always come up with a covering letter. Okay, whether we are making a kind of a sales deed or we are applying for a job or we have to state our qualifications. So that is something, that means the first question, as I told you, why any company will recruit you. That is the first condition. So the answer will be, that means we, whenever we are writing any kind of an application for any kind of a job, it should be well drafted. It should contain all the kind of the information, relevant information which is required. Apart from that, the sequence of your qualification and experience you should always have whenever we are presenting ourselves in a for a, any kind of a job, because this is how these people will be advertising. You will see, you will go through certain kind of the advertisement that we are looking for an excellent sales people with a proven track record of selling a full range customer durable products. So these are something which will there. So how you are going to, that means a company, that means if you are there with working with any kind of a multinational communication multinational company, how you are going to deal with that. So they will just give you a kind of an advertisement, and they will show that your posting will be there. You will be posted in this kind of a place. So if you will be posted, so you should be responsible. And apart from that, they will be asking for the experience. And then they will be talking about your remuneration will be comparable with the best in the industry. And it will be linked with your performance. So that is the ad, and this ad you have to pursue. So after this, first of all, there are few things which you have to quote. That is, what is the job which is being mentioned in that advertisement? Second, what is the salary which is being offered? Where is the job located? And what kind of company it is? Okay. So whenever we are writing for a company, so this is something like if XYZ, like it can be any kind of a company and it is hiring some kind of professional people. So what you will be doing, you will be first of all, there are two kind of the letter. One is the solicited letter and another one is the unsolicited letter. So what does it mean? Solicited letter is something, it can be considered as an application letter that is being sent to a company that advertises its vacancy through media. So just now I gave you an example, and the example was that there was a company which was hiring some people. That means that was a sales company, and they were asking for an excellent sales people with a kind of a proven track record, and that was selling the full range of customer durable products. Okay, so this post is something which is being advertised, and now you have to apply for it. So once the post is being advertised, and whenever we have to apply, so we have that kind of a letter is something which can be considered as a solicited application letter. On the other hand, what is unsolicited letter? Unsolicited application letter can be sent to the company, although you do not know whether there is a vacancy in that company. So where you are not aware, you're just applying because you felt that this company is good and I should join the team of this company. So there, these kind of the job application letters can be considered as unsolicited letter. So these are certain kind of the guidelines where we are, how we are going to, this is how we are going to structure our letters. So if we have to structure our letters, so this is how it should be used. The guidelines should be, first of all, the first paragraph, why you are writing for that company. Second, what you have to offer. Whenever we are going in front of a company, so what do? We always make sure that we have to sell ourselves. So how we are going to sell ourselves, what best qualities do we have, and why the other person should hire us. So that is something what you have to offer, what is genuine in you. Then only the other person will hire you. And the third paragraph is something where you are going to, how you will follow up. Okay, what are your details and all these things you are going to mention. So next is something where we are saying that this is the structure. The structure should include the date of the letter, apart from that, applicant's complete address. Then the second thing which is being required, that means the employer's complete name, the title, and the address. Then what is being required? The salutation. Salutation can be there, there, Mr. whatever the last name is. So you have to mention, dear sir, dear ma'am, in this manner you can mention it. Then you should frame the content, the body should be there. And what you are going to write, that is something which we have mentioned, that what you are writing, what you have to offer, how you will follow up. All these things are required over there. So this is how we frame a kind of a job application letter. Then the closing. So that is something which should include sincerely yours, respected, yeah, respectfully your. These are the salutations which are being used in the end. That means if you are writing a letter, this is how we are going to frame the structure of the letter. And then the enclosure. Enclosure is something, because what you are going to attach, definitely you are going to attach either your resume or you are going to attach your CV. So that is something which, and that is a kind of a document which is a kind of a proof for all your credentials you have scored. So that is how the company will come and follow you up. So this is again what they are talking about. They are talking about the contents of the job application letter, where I had mentioned that the first should be the opening paragraph, the second should be the second paragraph should talking about that what is your interest, and the final paragraph. So this is the example which is being given over here, that I am writing to express my keen software engineer position with Infosys. Okay, So that means the opening paragraph talks about your interest that you want to become a software engineer and where the company, which company you want to apply, that is Infosys. And apart from that, the second paragraph, which will be stating about why you are interested in that company, why, what are the reasons. So this is what he is mentioning. That means the example is something I believe that I meet all the requirement listed in your advertisement. My major experience and achievement to the date include that is BTech from NIT. So that is something which they are mentioning that yes, we have this kind of a degree that is a BTech degree or a diploma degree or MCA degree. That is something which can be included. Then the final paragraph is something where it talks about that what I'm doing, that I'm attaching my resume for your review. I would just be pleased to have the meeting with you to discuss the requirement of your software and again position for my skills in detail. So that is what he is mentioning. And then comes the curriculum vitae or the resume. So this is first of all what we have done. We have drafted a letter, and that drafted letter can be a covering letter which states each and everything, which talks about all the details of all our prerequisites, and then the attachment which we are going to add on is the curriculum vitae. And see, whenever we are writing our resume, make sure. See, after this, after concluding my lecture, this is what is being expected from your side also, that all the students who are right now listening to me are going to make their resume and they are going to share their resume so that we can just see that what is the structure of their resume or how they are making their curriculum vitae. There you can mention yourself that whether you are a fresher or you have an experience. If you are saying that yes, we have an experience in this kind of a company, you have to mention that in which company or under which project you have worked and what all things you have to what are the details that all things are being required. So this is how we structure a kind of a curriculum vitae. So whenever we are writing a curriculum vitae, so that should be like it should always have a kind of the name, your date of birth. So this is how we structured it. Okay. So this is where we are saying that a recent study indicates that the recruiters spend just 6 seconds reviewing your resume to see if it is worth for a second look. Got it? So that means if someone will, why the other person will shortlist. So that is why I said that after completing my lecture, this is what is being expected from my students, that all the students are going to make their resume and that should be in a very framed form. That means if a company is going to hire you, he or it will just spend 6 seconds. So that means this should be quoted, this should be noted that your first impression is your last impression. That means your spokesperson. Okay. And that means, as I told you earlier, when I was talking about my lecture only, when I just started up my lecture, I told you that it shows your strongest selling point. Okay, so that means why they should, because they will get hundreds and thousands of resumes. Any company gets, there are so many people who do not have jobs. So what is best in you? Why a company should hire you? And that is where your curriculum vitae is something which becomes a ticket to your interview. First of all, they are going to shortlist you and then they will call you for an interview. So that is why whenever we are writing, so all the fact, all the work experience, all the skills, including educational as well as our academic background, all our research experience, as well as our awards, honors, all these things should be filed. Okay, so that is something which is being required. You do not have to give your ancestral things. You do not have to tell that this is my father's name, this is my father's occupation. No, nothing is being required over there. It's all about you. Yes, your address should be very, very clear. Your email should be there. These are something which are very, very required. And whenever we are making, always remember that whenever we are framing a kind of a CV, so there are 5 C's which are important. So what are these 5 C's? One is it should be clear. Second, it should be concise. Third, it should be complete, consistent, and current. So these are the 5 C's which are must have for a kind of a curriculum writing. So that is something which is being required. So that means, first of all, it should be clear. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. So this is what we people have seen that here what they are talking about. I was talking about the 5 C's. So what is 5 C's? That means one, it should be clear. Second, it should be concise. Third, it should be complete. Fourth, it should be consistent. And fifth, it should be current. So where we people are talking about clear, so it should be very well organized and your CV should be logical. Concise means all the relevant information is something which is being required. You cannot talk about your family background. You're not supposed to talk about all these things. Okay. So this is not required whenever we are writing. What is your educational background? That is something which is being required. I'm telling you again, your address is something which is very, very mandatory. So that should be proper and systematic. Third is something, it should include completeness in a curriculum vitae. That means it should include everything what you need. Another thing is it should be consistent. Uh, Apart from that, up to date. Up to date means this is a very sometimes students get confused with this kind of a term. Up to date means that if we are writing certain kind of the things, so till that date, what are your qualification? You cannot say that, oh, I am pursuing, like suppose right now, you people are pursuing a kind of a program. Until or unless you do not get a degree, you cannot mention that, yes, we are a degree holders. So if we are pursuing any kind of a degree, we have to mention it. Yes, we are pursuing it. And then once you have, once you got that degree, then you can mention it. Yes, now we have this fully fledged form of this kind of a course. So that is where, that means we have to update it regularly. Another thing is sometimes these are the different kind of the structures of the curriculum vitae. That is chronological and the functional. Chronological is something which is very traditional type. Traditional type, that means if you have very big kind of a work experience, so that is something where which deals with the date of the employment, and it begins with your most recent position. It gives a kind of an illustrative kind of a progressive career path, and again it also shows a kind of a clear job target. So that is something which can be considered as a chronological kind of a curriculum vitae. Second is the functional, what you did, and apart from that, the emphasis on the academic and the volunteer experience, skills, and accomplishments. Sometimes, whenever we are fresh and we do not have a job experience, if we have a job experience, then it's okay. Experience sometimes does matter. Sometimes, whenever we are facing an interview, sometimes the interviewee may ask us this kind of a question that you're a fresher, why should we hire you? You don't have any experience. So, what should be your answer? what answer you will give. If someone will ask you, you don't have any job experience. Why should we hire you? What answer should come from your side? No answer? Am I audible? Is there any response? No response. So now this is how we are going to frame.
Excuse me, miss.
Yeah,
Uh, I need to have a question regarding
yeah, please.
the. Some people are talking about that about the CV curriculum vitae and resume that they
Hmm.
have difference between them. So, is there
Yeah,
any exact difference between them, CV and resume?
yeah, yeah. There is a very broad form of difference between a resume and a CV. Whenever we are producing a kind of a resume, so resume is something which is being structured in one page. So that means it is a one page kind of an information where you have to mention all your qualification within the limits of that resume. But curriculum vitae is something where it is a very elaborative form. There is no page restriction. Like it can go further and further. That means curriculum vitae is something which is dealt with an extensive form or an elaborative form where you are going to talk about yourself only. But here, what are your credentials? What are your add-ons? What are your experiences? So it enhances and it is much more voluminous. So that is the basic difference between a curriculum vitae and a resume. Resume is a one-page description about yourself, as well as curriculum vitae is something where you will be utilizing experiences and it is a more elaborative form. That is something. How do we differentiate between
Thank you, ma'am.
resume?
Any
Yeah.
limitation in the pages of curriculum vitae or no? That the most that you want to make it. I mean, two, five,
Maybe
3 pages or no? Any limitation in the creation of the vitae, curriculum vitae or no?
2, 3 pages, 2, 3 pages
Okay, okay, thank you,
maximum.
thank you.
Because with the course of time, what
Mhm.
happens? Our experience gets enhanced. So that is why, and when we have to add all those kind of skills over there, so that cannot be framed within the premises of a resume. So that is the basic difference between a resume and a CV. So CV is much more extensive form as compared to a resume. That
Okay,
is it.
ma'am, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other question? Yeah, so one more question. This was the question which I asked you people, and that was that what was my question? My question was you don't have an experience. Like suppose if we just made a kind of a resume and we presented our resume, and then we are facing a kind of an interview, and in our interview, the interviewer, since we are that means the employer is asking us a question. You don't have any experience. Why should we hire you? What should be our answer? They're going to pressurize us, no? They're going to put us under pressure. So what should be the appropriate answer?
Okay, ma'am. It is my opinion. If I am a
Yeah.
fresher, to answer this
Hmm.
question, my qualification, my efforts, and my knowledge about the position, I think I'm comfortable at this position. You can say like that.
You can say like that. Okay. Any other? See, as I told you, please go to this point. That means why the company should hire you. That means again, I'm telling you, that means yes, we know that cannot be denied. That is the truth, that we do not have any experience. Then why the other company should hire us? So the answer should be okay, as long I'm not having any kind of an experience, you can give us an offer, and then what we can do, we can have a kind of an experience. Until and unless nobody will hire me, how will I get an experience? Okay. So that means then only. So that is how we are making a statement, how we people are using us. Everyone knows. Sometimes the company people, they just wanted to see that how you work under pressure. If they are going to pressurize you under any kind of a situation, then what are your ethics? Sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we are not able to hold the situation. Sometimes we just blast on them. So will they recruit us? No. They just want to trigger us. They just want to see how we handle. These are all our management skills and how we are managing ourselves, how we are utilizing those skills. And these are something which will strengthen us up. So that is. So first of all, before talking about all these things, let us talk about what is an interview. So where we people are talking about an interview. So what is an interview? So interview is something which can be considered as a conversation between two people where there is interviewer. Interviewer is your employer. Got it? And interviewee. Interviewee is like us who have to apply for a job. And it is being continued with a kind of a questions which are being asked by the interviewer to obtain the information from the interviewee. So that is where the person will ask you certain kind of the questions about your thing, because sometimes if they say that if we go and if we say that these are our educational qualifications, they will say, oh, it's already written in your resume, these we have already seen, we know what is being written on your resume, we know all these things, tell me more about yourself. One approach is we go for an interview and then we show our resume, and then someone will ask, okay, tell me about yourself, and then we will say, oh, it's already written on that. So is it a nice gesture or a wrong gesture? Good approach or a wrong approach? How you are going to introduce yourself? Again, think about it. This is again a kind of a question. So interview is something which the word interview can stand for the different purpose, like job interview, news media interview, etc. So this is how we are going to talk about what are job interviews. So these are the types of interviews. Okay, so as I introduced my lecture, I continued my lecture with this one. That means where we people are talking about the telephonic conversation. So in a telephonic conversation, we can have a meeting, we can have a kind of a conference call, we need certain kind of the etiquettes which are being required. So whenever we are making a kind of an interview, so there are certain platforms which are being required over there also. These are the types of the interviews. One is the face-to-face interview. Another one is the behavior interview. Next is the phone interview, panel interview, technical interview, exit interview, and stress interview. So how you people are going to talk about, so whenever we are facing a kind of an interview, so first of all, we have to have a kind of a preparation for an interview. That means, first of all, the must need things which are being required is we should always go through a copy of our application before our interview, because there are certain kind, it is very specific that people are going to ask the question from the application, from the resume which we have, or a CV which we have produced in front of those people. Second thing, we should be able to provide the examples with specific and elaborate information. Okay, that means why we should hire you, that is again a kind of a big question. It's a big deal. So we should be fully aware. Second thing, another thing, that means whenever we are facing a kind of an interview, we should be open and we should be honest. We should be very, very genuine. All the answers, we should not talk big about ourselves. We cannot flatter, we cannot use some kind of a language which is not being required. The thing is, it should be very genuine. Okay, so that is something which are very, very important. Another thing is, wherever there is a, where we are saying no, that the face-to-face interview is something where the person is sitting right in front of you, and then that person will be asking the kind of a question which you have already written. So he will be just asking those kind of the questions. Then comes this shows your behavior pattern. Behavior is something where say they will put you into a kind of a situation where they are going to pressurize you, and then they just wanted to know that how you are going to behave. They are very tricky kind of an interviews also. Okay, that doesn't mean that yeah, we are going to face an interview and very comfortably we are going to go in front of the people, in front of the interviewers, and they are going to ask those kind of a questions which we know. No, they will never ask you those kind of a question which you know. Okay, they will put you into a kind of a question, into that kind of a situation where you actually get confused. So that is something how you have to deal with that, because it's all about in and out, how you behave, either the company, because sometimes what happens, we have all the good kind of a credentials, we have all the educational qualification, but then also we are rejected just on the basis of our interview. Where do we went wrong when we have done everything? All the things are being done from us. So what happened? Why? Okay, so that is something that means ki where people will watch your non-verbal clues also. That means how you behave, certain kind of the things which can be considered as an eye contact, or it can be considered as the posture or the gesture you're making, whether you are courteous with the administrative staff, what kind of an impact you have given to them, what are your signs, whether you have dealt with them in a proper manner or you haven't shown them something which was expected from their side. So all these things are something which are being required whenever we are presenting ourselves in for our interview. Then then comes the phone interview. In a phone interview, see, as I told you, the person doesn't know. He cannot see your body language. He cannot, but how you are making a kind of a conversation, what your impact is, whether you are using a polite manner or you are not using, whether you are giving a positive or a negative impact. That is something which is there. So that is why whenever we are making those kind of an interviews, whenever we are preparing ourselves for our interview, so we should be aware of this fact that we should have done a homework for everything. That means we should have a kind of a rational assessment of ourselves before we present ourselves in front of the interview. Sometimes the interviewer may ask you one kind of a question. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So that is there. Technical interview, panel interview is something where so many people are there and they are going to ask you different kind of a questions. Technical interview is something which is very subject specific, so they are going to ask the questions accordingly. Exit interview is something where they will be dealing with the other patterns. That means they will be giving you a kind of a situation and where they are going to talk about how you're going to feel, how you're going to work. Stress interview is something that means they will just review your skills, your abilities, how reasonable you are, some kind of brainstorming issues. Sometimes they will be asking these kind of things. But in order to sum up, whatever an interview is, you always have to give a kind of a positive impression, okay, with a kind of a smile on your face. Second is how enthusiastic you are, or your body language should be. proper. Then your mannerism. You should be very, very natural as possible. So you have to be very clear. You should be very active listener. The questions which these people are asking, you have to listen to the question systematically. Then only you can face that one. So that is there. What are the needs for an interview? Why do we need an interview? We need an interview so that we can judge the overall personality of the candidate. We can ensure whether the candidate is able to perform the required job or not, whether he's fit for the job or not. The third thing which is being required is what are his educational, what are the required skills for that professional, whether he is proper, whether he is that much competent or not. All these things are required. Apart from that, the next point is to judge your strength as well as weakness. That is why we hold an interview. And the ability and capacity to perform your duties. So that is the required segments which are being required for an interview. So that is there. So sometimes where we are saying that active listening is something which is being required for an interview. Second thing is how you speak. Okay, so that is because sometimes they will just ask, these are the questions, I'm just giving you certain kind of the questions, like tell me about yourself. So that is an interviewer will ask you. Okay, then they will ask you, do you have any kind of a hobbies? How do you spend time on your hobbies? What are your hobbies? Or if they have to ask these kind of a question which is based on an education, so there are random sets of the question that why did you choose your major subject? Like why computers is your major subject? Why that is? Or what are your favorite subjects? What are your favorite activities in your school time? Or what do you think that whether the kind of the education you hold for this one, are you prepared for this position or not? So these are certain kind of the examples which they are going to, the interviewer may ask the interviewee. Then we have certain kind of the sets of the questions which definitely they are going to ask, that what are your greatest strength? What are your weakness? Okay, suppose if I ask you that what are your weak points? If me being an interviewer and you being an interviewee, and if someone asks you this kind of a question, that what are your weak points? What are your strength and weakness? What will be your answer? Just think and speak.
Miss, my answer going to be that the weakness is that suddenly I'm getting angry.
Okay, so that means then the company will say, no, we don't want an angry person.
No, actually,
Okay.
in the right way. Sometimes they are, for
So
example,
you being honest. That is
yeah.
why I asked. Yeah, you are being honest. You are saying them that I have my anger issues.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means, okay, we have anger issues, but I had a systematic management over my anger issues. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that is how, that means we have a kind of a weakness, but we are working on it. Because if they will say, no, oh, he's an angry man. No, 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 we don't want to keep him. He is going to he will be a kind of a threat for our company. Okay. This
Yeah.
impression we are not going to give, because if we being honest, that was a too honest answer from your side. Okay. So if we are giving a kind of an answer, so that means we can give that these can be our weakness, like I'm emotional. Emotional means I take stress, not I do not take stress, but being emotional, sometimes what I do, um, I make some kind of a silly mistakes, not major mistakes. If we will say yes, we do major mistakes, So that is where the person will say, oh, he does major mistakes. That means we should think before we keep him. Okay. So that is where you are giving your strength, the three greatest strengths, as well as the weakness. But those weakness are something where we are. If you will say, oh, I'm a very lazy person. So then why the company will hire you? They need a worker. So there are some terms, but how we are able to manipulate them. That means how we are able to turn the table. It's all about turning the table. Okay. That means, yes, we have these kind of weakness, but that will not be a kind of a threaten to your company. Yes, we are honest while speaking our statements, but we are very friendly. We had a friendly approach. Okay, so that is how we have to deal. That means my anger management is something which I'm working on. It's the best kind of a solution through which I can deal with that job. Sometimes they ask, there are certain kind of the futuristic because they wanted to know your career goals also. They will ask you this kind of a question that where do you see yourself after 5 years? So what will be your answer? That will be something that means that is something which is very goal oriented. That means they just wanted to know that whether you are a positive person or you are a negative person. So if they are going to ask you this question that where do you see yourself after 5 years? So what will be your answer? No answer? No vision?
So, Miss, as
Yeah.
I'm currently working with an organization within the EU, so as a assistant, IT assistant. So, in this case, for example, if they are asking from me, so I'm telling them that I need to be in a greater position.
Yeah.
So yeah, because
Greater position.
I'm seeing I'm seeing in myself the experience that I would be in a good position in the 5 coming years.
Yes. So that means you are fully aware that I am the managing director, or you see yourself somewhere in management, not in a working one, not someone who will work. No. How we are going to deal? Now, how we can be a team leaders? Because they will be evaluating you. They want that since you have this kind of an experience, so what is your strongest leadership skill and how you are going to handle your job? Okay. So that is something which they are going to see in you. So these are the things which are being required for an interview. Now I'm coming to my next slide, and that will be on the group discussion. Just give me 1 minute. So now we are coming towards the last session, last topic of this session, and that is the group discussion. So in this, we are going to talk about what a group discussion is, and what are the methods and the procedure of a group discussion. Apart from that, what are the group discussion skills? What are the language from a group discussions? What language we should be using? So this is where we people are going to talk about. That means whenever we are making a kind of a group discussions. So as I'm talking about the technique, that is LSRW. All these things are required. So that means, first of all, in order to make a kind of a group discussion on anything, okay, we should be aware of any kind of a fact. Okay, so that means here, let's, whenever we are talking about what a group discussion is. So A group discussion can be considered as a test of interpersonal communication skills of a candidate. So it is something which is being considered as your interpersonal, not intrapersonal, interpersonal. Okay, so how you are from what, whether, as I was telling you earlier also, that what are your leadership qualities? That is something which is being required in a group discussion. The second point which is there in a group discussion is that it accesses the capacity of a person to interact constructively to a number of a group and to make a meaningful contribution to a discussion. So that means where we are saying about our interpersonal communicative skills. So that means that it cannot be overstated. That means we should be very precise. We should be very, very clear. We should be able to communicate effectively face to face. So that is what happens in group discussions, because sometimes here you should be very, very clear about one thing. That means whenever before interview, sometimes some company may go for a group discussion in order to shortlist certain kind of the candidates. So whenever they are making a kind of a group discussion, so they will just give you a kind of a random topic, and on that random topic, you have to focus on few points. That means if there is uh, a group discussion coordinator and the participants will be maybe 10 or 8, the number of participants which are required in a group discussion, and the duration, the course of the time which they are going to give you will be 15 to 20 minutes. So what happens in a group discussion, each and every participant is being asked, first of all, they will say that just think before you speak. So they will just give you a kind of a time that this is the topic, and that means here, uh, since this is something which can be considered as a modern method of assessing the student's personality, so they will give you a kind of a topic, and then they will say that now you start your conversation, now you can begin your conversation with a kind of a discussion. So here, why they require a group discussion? Because this can be a kind of a technique or an art and a comprehensive tool to judge the worthiness of the student, whether they are appropriate for the job or not. So they will just give you a kind of a situation where they will, because it will go along with the other interviews also. Sometimes they will take the interview, personal interview, or just in order to understand the personal nature of the candidate, they will use this kind of a technique. So what they are going to do, they will give you a kind of a topic. They will say that 3 to 5 minutes is something which is required to speak, and then what you have to do, you will be given a kind of a group and time frame, and within that time frame you have to start up your discussion. And in this you have to talk about, first of all, there are few points which you have to shortlist. That means first of all you have to talk about the facts, then you should be able to define the symptoms, then you should be able to identify the problem, what is the problem, and finally you have to come up with a kind of a solution. So these are the key indicators whenever you are given any kind, this is a kind of a procedure. So these are few things which prerequisites for a group discussion. First of all, facts should be there. If you do not know the topic, you can ask that, yes, we will not be able to speak on this topic. You can change the topic. Second thing, how you are going to identify the symptoms. Third is how you are going to define it, and what are your solutions. So all these things are required in a group discussion. So another thing, it is something whereby what is a group discussion? Group discussion is being used along with a personal interview for a selection of the candidate. And basically, it plays a very important role because here we can identify who's the best. That doesn't mean that you have scored very high mark, or a student who gets selected for higher another course employment are placed on at a par with equal footing based on their age, qualification, and experience. So here, people will not judge you on what your qualifications are, but basically how you are able to present yourself. That is something which is being required in a group discussion. Apart from that, why it is being required, it becomes necessary to conduct further screening for choosing a few among many. So it is just like a screening. They are just going to shortlist you because you have 10 members, and out of 10 members, only 2 or 3 genuine people will be the one who will be shortlisted, and then finally they will be just going for the final interviews. And then again, another thing why we require a group discussion, first of all, whether the candidate is socially suitable among the academically superior achievers. So you are the chosen one. So all these things are checked in a group discussion. So here, whenever they will be, these are the must things which you people, whenever we are having a kind of a group discussion, sometimes group discussions leads to a kind of a fight. Sometimes group discussions, we are not able to manage the time. So that is, again, group discussion is something which is built up on a good knowledge, whether our base is clear or not. Another thing which is being required, that whether we are producing ideas. Okay, so that means again it is talking about our leadership qualities. So whether it will aim to find it out, that means how we are going to handle a kind of a situation. So if we are structuring our ideas, so our ideas should be logically structured, and we should convey our ideas in a very convincing form. We should be able to convince. That is something which is being required. Another thing is here, where we people are talking about a group discussion. So what happens? We deals with 3 to 8 people together, where what we do, we interact and we speak about it. So that is something which is being required in a group discussion. Again, one thing which is being used over there, it is a group discussion is something which is being used for a decision making and problem solving. If there is a kind of a problem, sometimes whenever we are discussing, because whenever we conduct a kind of a group discussion, what happens? People will just, as I told you now, that it talks about your leadership quality. So where we people are drawing a kind of a line on leadership quality, so people will jump on each other. Because every time what they will do, they will just say that, no, I'm right and I'm right. So this is not the solution. This is not how you're going to convey your talk. This is not how very elaborately you are going to mention your facts. This takes into a kind of an argument. So sometimes group discussions directly leads you to an argument. So where we are saying that instead of being an argumentative, we should be assertive. The facts which we people are producing. Then if there is a kind, on the other hand, they will be saying that whether we should avoid certain kind of the verbosity and the worldliness. So these should be avoided. Apart from that, we should be using our conversational style in a form of a manner where we are going to solve it, where we are going to resolve. Okay, so that is something which is being required. because the more your ideas, the more your knowledge of the subject, the more you are interested. It shows that how much enthusiastic you are, how much confident you are. All these things are required in a group discussion. These are certain kind of the categories of the group discussion. There are organizational group discussions, and there are certain kind of the group discussions which are a kind of a part of a selection process. So whenever we are having a kind of a group discussions, we should restrict our discussion as or interpersonal communication in our decision making process. Okay, so we should restrict ourselves with these kind of the things. Then how we are operating in a with those people. So all these things. And whenever we are sitting for a group discussion, always remember that everyone will sit in a circle, or it will be a kind of a U shape. Everyone will be given, there is a kind of a freedom of choice of seat. There will be seats which will be allocated. And then there will be a kind of a panel who will be observing you and who will be evaluating you. So whosoever will be evaluating you, you should, this is what they are going to do, this is what they are going to see. That means they will be talking about, that means whether you have the ability to work in a team. Because whenever, if a group discussion leads to a kind of a argument, then the things will not go on a very right pattern. So these are the things which are being required. That means knowledge, your communication skills, your group behavior. That means you are not going to fight. And then your leadership potential. So all these things and the skills which are being required over there is the active listening. You should be clear. Your body language should be proper. The lucidity of the language should be very clear and comprehensive. So these are some of the points which they have mentioned. The tone, what should be the tone, what should be the voice, the power of speech. Power of speech, that means you should not be loud. That means the articulation, that means the speak relevant, because maximum times we are being judged through what we speak. We are not being judged through how we look. Look also does matter, but the person will be judged on what he speaks. So on one hand, if we are able to listen, that means we should be active listener. Because if what the other person is saying, if we are actively listening to that and then we are giving our viewpoint, that is something which is being mattered. That is something which is being taken into decision. Your modulation, that means the voice should be proper. How you are expressing your ideas, that should be in a right tone. And you should be able to express yourself properly. So the language, this is something which is being mentioned. The body language, this I had already been explained. So how you are going to speak in a group, that means your ability to reflect how you are interacting with the other members also, that is something which other people will observe. Then your emotional maturity and balance, how much mature you are, whether you are triggered up or not, is something which actually they will note. So this is something which will talk about the good interpersonal relationship. Then again, I quote this line that people should be more, that means it is being expected that it should be people centric, not egocentric. It's not about all me, myself. Okay, so it should not be about your ego problem. It should not be your ideology clashes. It should be very proper. It should be very systematic. And you should always be empathetic. You should be having not a non-threatening behavior. And very maturely, you should behave as a good team player. So that is something, these are there. They are going to watch that whether you get aggressive, how you are going to handle that situation. If your conversation goes into a kind of an argument, then how your ability to handle that situation, that is your leadership quality, that will be there. Again, sometimes what we do in order to dominate others, we bully. So that is also which is not being required. Okay, then sometimes whenever we are having a kind of a group discussion, we keep a kind of an add-on. We add on our personal comments. So that is again, we have to note that we are not supposed to add our own personal comments. So all these, that means again, it is a time-bound phrase. So we should be very comprehensive whenever we are utilizing a kind of a group discussion. Then apart from that, they talk about that how you lead your, how you display your leadership qualities. That is how you present yourself as a leader. Then how you coordinate with others and how you involve your knowledge, energy, objectivity, integrity, and your emotional intelligence. All these things are being noted. So these are the do's which are required. That first of all, you should sit comfortably. Second, you should listen to the topic. Third, your idea should be organized. Speak at the earliest. The first speaker is always noted. You should identify who will be speaking against you and who will be speaking with you. And then you should always be aware of keeping a track of the time, sharing your time fairly. Then eye contact is something, eye contact is a kind of a sign of your confidence. So all these things are required. Then what the other person is saying, you have to make a note on that. And finally, aiming for a summary. You should be able to summarize what you have said. Another thing, what is not required in a group discussion, being in a hurry. So that is not, which will never lead you to a good kind of a group discussion. If you will keep silent, then nobody will be able to hear what do you want to speak. Another thing, where you are dominating it, either vocally or physically. So that is something you have to manage that condition also. Okay. Again, assuming your role of a chairman, that means you have to hold it. You have to hold the situation. So how you are going to deal with it. Then how you are going to, that means again, this is something which you have to avoid. That means how you introduce a topic. It's not you. It's a kind of a group discussion. It's not about me, myself. You have to avoid all these things. Then every time taking an extreme stance. So that is something which is not being required. And every time you are not required to look at the faculty. So whosoever is observing you, you are not required to look over there. Again, moving from one place to another, being restless, that is also not required. Then throwing all the ideas at one shot. No, keep it. Be calm. Listen to others also. What others have to say. All these things are that is something which you should avoid. Then we should, it's not in a very hurry-burry. That means we should not speak fast. We should be very slow. We should be very clear. We should be very proper. Then again, discussing, this is not being required. Okay, that means you cannot speak negative. You cannot indulge a kind of an ill conversation. Your mannerism is something which is always being used. Again, politeness is something which is being required. Paying attention to the bulldozers. No, you are not using a kind of a slang. Your language, whatever you are speaking, it should be proper. Getting emotional, how you are going to manage the situation. It doesn't mean that you start crying or you start leaving. No, we cannot leave that situation. So whatever we have to deal with, we have to deal it in a very systematic manner. So these are the important things which are being required in this kind of a conversation, group discussion. So all these things we people have already done. So that will be all for today. 1 minute. Yes. So now we are coming to the final conclusion. So is there any question which you have to ask?
For me now, no.
No, ma'am, sir. No.
No question? Okay. Any
Ma'am,
problem in any? Yeah.
yes, can you
One,
share this PPT on our group?
see, I think the lectures which I'm delivering in front of you are all being recorded. So what you can do, you can just go through the live lectures also.
It would be nice if we had a hard copy or a separate copy of this PPT.
Definitely, I will share. It will
The
be
video is
helpful.
not
But apart,
comfortable. Yes.
okay. Apart from that, all of you are being requested that first of all the practice exercise which are being given, you should be completing those practice exercise. Number one. One more thing before this, what we can do, we can just stop the recording also. Give me 1 minute. Apart from this, any other question?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there is one more thing which I would like to do. That means your presentation skills. So you have to be ready with your presentations. We will be giving you the title. I will be sharing the title and you have to present. You have to give the presentation. Okay, because in your block 2, it is being mentioned about the presentation skills. So presentation skills is all about how you are going to present if a title is being given. So I will give you the basic information about it in block 2 when I'm going to discuss. But you also have to be prepared for how you are going to present these kind of the skills. So the main task is all about this. And there are so many exercises which are being given. So you have to follow them up. The more practice you will do, the more efficient that will be.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I think we have one session, last session. So all the
Yeah.
things will be covered in that session, or because we have more
See,
idea.
no, we have few topics which are being left because for the presentation
Okay.
skills, we are, this is what we are discussing in our last section also, that
Okay.
we will be having a kind of some practical sessions. So in that practical sessions, you are going to present. We will be having a kind of group discussions where all these things which are being taught you, how you are going to implement in your daily life or in your workplace, that is important. So one
Okay.
session, we will be having a kind of a separate session. That will be a practical session. Apart from now, we are just moving
Theory.
towards the end. Yeah,
Okay, ma'am.
that can be done.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And as you said that, yeah, only one more class is left. So try
Yeah.
to complete the remaining syllabus in that one class, and then obviously whatever will be left, and plus practical thing will be done in the practical sessions. So I
Yeah.
think we'll be getting at least 2 sessions for practical. So during those
Yeah,
also,
so that will be more than sufficient.
yes. So yeah, we'll be getting 2 sessions for practical. So during those that time we'll handle those all issues. And meanwhile, learners, if you really want to get learning out of this practical thing, be ready with your practical problems. Only see in theory classes, okay, it's okay that the counselor speaks and you listen, but in practical classes, obviously you have to interact. If you'll not interact, then there is no use of practical classes. So be ready with that, and means make a what to say, make a compilation of your practical issues, practical problems that you face. So it will be helping the resource person to guide the entire process. Only then, otherwise, there's no use of organizing practical sessions. If you have some practical issues, only that it will be useful.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. So take a note of some of the issues which can be discussed during practical session. So on 22, that will be the last session, theory session of this thing. And the remaining thing we'll be discussing in practical. But meanwhile, you prepare your plan for practicals. So what you like to include in practicals. Ma'am will make her plan, but you people also make so that we can
Yeah, I
learn
had
them.
already during the course of my today's session, so I had mentioned this thing.
Okay.
First of all, I was talking about that they are going to make their CV or resume. First of
Okay.
all, they are going to frame it. Second, in our practical sessions, what we can have, we can give them a random topics for the group discussion.
Yes.
And in the next course of time, like we can give them the situation, I will give them the situation and I will ask them to volunteer it, where they are going to talk about the telephonic techniques. I will give them examples. So how they are going to deal with it, that task also they are going to do. And finally, the presentation skills. So the last will be the presentation skill.
Yes.
So on that, I will not be giving them an extempo because they need a kind of a time to prepare also. So what we
Yes.
can do, we can give them the topic.
Yes.
I can share those topics to you. You can just mail them or you can just tell them. And through this, we can
Ma'am, if you can make
continue.
one page of template on which that
Yeah.
practical thing will be based, so that the
Hmm.
learners may prepare accordingly. So one page of
Okay.
write-up or question paper or template, whatever you call it, please fill
Okay.
there, and then we'll be sharing it to the learners so that
Okay. So
interaction may
that
be
can be
meaningful.
done. Okay.
Ji, ji.
So in the 2 practical sessions, this can be done. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, ma'am. And ma'am, please stop recording because it was started at your end. Acha, now
Okay.
no, it
No.
was started by us. I'll stop. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.